It's Tuesday, December 27th, 2022. Last night, again, looking for threads of reality for what the, I guess they don't call themselves social media, but they are the ones that got capital funding and capital dollars in order to make some artistry storyboard um, for some larger project going on within the life frame that I'm in, this New York City time capsule, or New York State time capsule of sorts. Um, I'm thinking um, we're in the season. We just got through something called a Pentecost. Not really sure what that means. Only heard the word Penta used. Again, rarely. Um, Now it's in something called an Advent. And originally I thought Advent was expression, but it says on the Google, on the a maxi pad that I have on internet, that it's a notable person. I thought that was interesting. They also say second coming of this Christ. I'm, yeah, not sure what the word Christ actually means to humanity, but it would be indicative of this um, two-piece incarnate directional or signal in like a calcaneus calculus, but whichever. So there's that. But again, there's this mention. I have this place I'm able to get to where I am called Zion. I was looking for reference and texture, like granulation, granular grit, for what it might mean in hyperbolic things, parabolic things. And it says something about Jerusalem. I'm thinking of Yellowstone and Bethlehem. I'm not sure what other people mean it to mean when I break down the word Jeru, which is the field, like I field. And then I think of what I grew up, and it's like the mother scolds the children. I was an only child, so it happened at grandma's house, but like, it's all fun and games till someone loses an eye. Yeah, I could say that to management right now, feeling very lost in the last 44 years and having brought the big I am. Um, and so there's this thing called the Hunger Games. Um, Again, it seems that's the very fashionable, um, trying to save their own skins, perhaps, for how they've lived this time frame in the distracting categories, blaming it on the alternative being like feast or famine. So they chose famous. And in a philosophy point of view, knowing there's cosmic fabric more important in spiritual and surreal terms than their whatever they live in. Um, Knowing that they frighten themselves most of the time collectively, or so I've noticed in some of the messages they threw out, Hunger Games being one of them, about how fragile their sense of self and connection to anything outside of their very shallow worlds. Um, so now I'm watching this morning, balancing out the Hunger Game. I don't know if it's a theology, I don't know if it's a theory, theorem. But now something prefaced. I did not realize that I saw that, and I should go back to the first Matrix. There's a trilogy, The Matrix. I think it's a trilogy. The second one I'm watching, did not know that it had reference to Zion in it. I was listening with a keen eye and ear now that I've experienced Zion in the eye field. And I also read that on the Maxi iPad, of what they put in here, that it's a safe place for one to go and serve God inside Zion. So again, I suppose that has symbolic value in my time capsule. So anyhow, so I'm watching, and there's 3 parts. It's a very long movie. I find 3 parts had an interesting way of explaining things. I hear one point of view about the machines, but most parts and levels of humanity get lost on that. And then I jump to a core philosophy outside of like the normal small talk. It's very deep. It's inside of a state-of-the-art facility, or mirror in mirror, when the mirror images are slightly broken, but then you have a parallel dimension inside of multi-parallels. Again, conversations I enjoy to be amongst and within. I just don't like so much alone time. So here we are.
Old men like me don't bother with making points.
And then it goes back in the beginning. I go towards the beginning after these 2 points are made, to some old prophecy that others are using or going off of, which gets confusing. So I just listen with a keen ear to what they're speaking, because I don't really speak their level of human.
There's no point. Is that why there are no young men on the council? Good point. Why don't you tell me what's on your mind, Counselor? There is so much in this world that I do not understand.
This feels very NFL elite to me, just saying.
See that machine? It has something to do with recycling our water supply. I have absolutely no idea how it works, but I do understand the reason for it to work. I have absolutely no idea how you were able to do some of the things you do, but I believe there's a reason for that as well. I only hope we understand that reason before it's too late.
Self-care.
And here we are, at 38. 238.
Get the royal treatment. Join the millions playing Royal Match today. Download now.
I know what you're thinking.
What is going on? It goes into cosmic space.
Hello, Neo.
Who are you?
I am the architect. I created the Matrix. I've been waiting for you. You have many questions, and though the process has altered your consciousness, you remain irrevocably human. Ergo, some of my answers you will understand, and some of them you will not. Concordantly, while your first question may be the most pertinent, you may or may not realize it is also the most irrelevant.
Why am I here?
Your life is the sum of a remainder of an unbalanced equation inherent to the programming of the Matrix.
Oh my goodness. Somebody heard me. I know somebody came before me. I know that these are generational, passed down through the ages, before the revolution, before the breakup, before this callous attempt to keep the nuclear family from staying in a solid state and protecting one another, and the arc decades and the arc decadence for which they've accumulated in wealth and knowledge of the stars and of their people and of what their purpose was then, is now, and forever shall be. There's a cosmic purpose. That's what August was all about. That's what Augustus was all about.
You are the eventuality of an anomaly which, despite my sincerest efforts, I have been unable to eliminate from what is otherwise a harmony of mathematical precision. While it remains a burden.
Harmony. First three letters of that, harm.
Burden assiduously avoided, it is not unexpected, and thus not beyond a measure of control, which has led you inexorably here.
You haven't answered my question.
Quite right. Interesting. That was quicker than the others.
Others? How many others? What? Is it revival?
The Matrix is older than you know. I prefer counting from the emergence of one integral anomaly to the emergence of the next, in which case this is the sixth version.
5 ones. There were 5 ones. There are only 2 possible explanations. There were 5 ones before me. Either no one told me, or no one knows.
Precisely. As you are undoubtedly gathering, the anomaly is systemic, creating fluctuations in even the most simplistic equations.
You can't make me do anything. 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 Like Chris.
Choice. The problem is choice.
Now, when I was younger, I would go to sleep in Queens, in New York, and I would tell the adults when I awoke that I was traveling, and I always found this one person for whom I was eternally grateful that I found him every time I closed my eyes. He lived in some other place, but he and I had a lot of work to do. And when I would awake, I would tell my babysitter, not so much Linda, she didn't want to hear about it. She didn't know what to do with it or how to process it. But Judith did, Judy. She was my only aunt or aunt, born in August, same cosmic fabric from where in this broken galaxy thing. So I would awake and I would tell her. I don't know what she did with the information after I alerted her as to what was going on. But there is this spiritual journeyman that I was supposed to be with. I know he came to visit. I know there were a select few of others that came to visit that knew. Again, it's like they turned it into some kind of trap, it feels like. So when there's this Trinity feature in this movie called The Matrix, um, and then it goes back to that conversation with Neo.
The first matrix I designed was quite naturally perfect. It was a work of art, flawless, sublime, a triumph equaled only by its monumental failure. The inevitability of its doom is apparent to me now as a consequence of the imperfection inherent in every human being.
I will say that in the Star Wars from the Reagan era, I noticed the other day when I watched that documentary, they mentioned a mathematician by the name of Teller. How telling. In fortune builders and in fortune tellers and in prophets and prophecy, I find the stippling of the disciples quite monumental and frightening, with how they've reacted at times with this equation being so off balance for so long, pre-descendant to my arrival, and then antecedent thereafter.
Thus I redesigned it, based on your history, to more accurately reflect the varying grotesqueries of your nature. However, I was again frustrated by failure. I have since come to understand that the answer eluded me because it required a lesser mind, or perhaps a mind less bound by the parameters of perfection. Thus, the answer was stumbled upon by another, an intuitive program, initially created to investigate certain aspects of the human psyche. If I am the father of the Matrix, she would undoubtedly be its mother.
The Oracle.
Please. As I was saying, she stumbled upon a solution whereby nearly 99% of all test subjects accepted the program as long as they were given a choice, even if they were only aware of the choice at a near unconscious level. While this answer functioned, it was obviously fundamentally flawed, thus creating the otherwise contradictory systemic anomaly.
Right. That whole concept of fun versus function.
That if left unchecked might threaten the system itself. Ergo, those that refuse the program, while a minority, if unchecked, would constitute an escalating probability of disaster.
This is about Zion.
You are here because Zion is about to be destroyed. Its every living inhabitant terminated, its entire existence eradicated.
Now, in my world, the urban culture has referenced something called The Walking Dead. There's a reference somewhere buried inside that. Inside that truth, there's, I mean, again, de facto humans trying to warp and almost like a school of fish, and then a gigantic whale comes and trying to move and morph the school of fish into some, I don't know. But I do find it interesting within my time frame and my time capsule. Most things that are presented here in this urban culture on this northeast coast has been posed within the New York City landscape. It's been like this mecca of sorts.
Denial is the most predictable of all human responses.
Almost like a cultural mecca.
But rest assured, this will be the 6th time we have destroyed it, and we have become exceedingly efficient at it. The function of the One is now to return to the source, allowing a temporary dissemination of the code you carry, reinserting the Prime program. After which you will be required to select from the Matrix 23 individuals, 16 female, 7 male, to rebuild Zion. Failure to comply with this process will
16-7. 16 candles. What's a Thomas Reed reference? In my time capsule, anyhow.
process will result in a cataclysmic system crash, killing everyone connected to the Matrix, which, coupled with the extermination of Zion, will ultimately result in the extinction of the entire human race.
You won't let it happen. You can't. You need human beings to survive.
There are levels of survival we are prepared to accept. However, the relevant issue is whether or not you are ready to accept the responsibility for the death of every human being in this world. It is interesting reading your reactions. Your 5 predecessors were, by design, based on a similar predication, a contingent affirmation that was meant to create a profound attachment to the rest of your species, facilitating the function of the One. While the others experienced this in a very general way, your experience is far more specific, vis-a-vis love.
Trinity.
V. As in Sovi. As in C'est la vie. That's between Jeru and Bethla. In an Alam.
Apropos, she entered the Matrix to save your life at the cost of her own.
No.
Which brings us at last to the moment of truth, wherein the fundamental flaw is ultimately expressed and the anomaly revealed as both beginning and end. There are 2 doors.
Still can't sleep. You want to?
Looks a little like a Greek restaurant to me. Again, it's like cold fish. I mean, there are people that know I'm in this wrong level and yet just keep allowing it to perpetuate.
You want to talk?
They're just dreams.
If you're afraid of something.
I just wish. I wish I knew what I'm supposed to do. That's all. I just wish I knew.
She's gonna call. Don't worry.
Here you are.
Are we ready to go?
We're already late.
These geotherms confirm the last transmission of the Osiris.
Osiris, now is that as in the god Osiris with Isis? I'm just curious, because that seems like a very ancient Egypt understanding of things that has gotten through to my time capsule via ancient aliens. Some of their, and I think they call them anthropologists. I'm learning these words of how I call them scholars, but they're the ones who actually got to levels of education and mentors that gave them a vocabulary to even chase something called a hobby or an interest, which I have not been able to even acquire. There's so little opportunity given, and then it's just taken away. So it's not something that could be explored and into some form of mastery. because they keep dangling it like a carrot and then removing it from possibility.
The machines are digging. They're boring from the surface straight down to Zion.
Mother, will avoid the entire perimeter defense.
How fast are they moving? Control estimates their descent at 100 meters an hour.
How deep are they?
Almost 2,000 meters.
What about the scans from the Osiris?
It can't be accurate.
They may be.
It's not possible.
That'd mean there are 250,000 sentinels out there. That's right.
That can't be.
Why not? A sentinel for every man, woman, and child in Zion. That sounds exactly like the thinking of a machine to me.
Morpheus, glad you could join us.
Niobe.
My apologies to all. As you are undoubtedly aware, it has become increasingly difficult to locate a secure broadcast position.
Squiddy's got all the best spots.
Mainline with a crawl. And if Niobe's right, in 72 hours, it's gonna be 250,000 more.
What are we gonna do about it?
We're gonna do what Commander Locke ordered us to do. We'll evacuate broadcast level and return to Zion.
And does the commander have a plan for stopping 250,000 sentinels?
A strategy is still being formulated.
I'm sure it is.
So again, I've not been following along. I wasn't privy to the information before. I don't know how it has taken shape, taken hold, or been somehow cultivated through cross culture and this new host of liabilities is what it looks like. In Hunger Games, to cross-reference the dome, the manipulation of if they're in this one simulation, one citadel, one area of operation, and then the dome, how it participates with the ground, the small ground force. That's what my time capsule at this point feels like in this later leg of it's not living. It's just here, coexisting at the same time that others are malfunctioning as far as I'm concerned. It's star 1978, star 8378, Nicole Cattaruzza. The pattern that they used to represent this area is this. For whatever that line of communication is between perpetuitous and between proprietorship, somewhere between a trust and somewhere between irrevocable. Not quite sure how they use that intimate vocabulary in certain vocations. Again, person, place, and thing. Nouns I haven't even had opportunity to spend any length of time with.